All right, welcome back to Art for O.U.R. This is Dan Preece, turning one willow tree into an endless form of exotic vases. I think I mentioned one time that this tree, it died when we bought our property, or died before we bought our property, and so a lot of it wasn't rotten, so I saved it. And the base of this thing was huge. It's like 4 or 5 feet across. And so I saved 2 big chunks of that and cut it up into a bench and put it around our fireplace outside. And there's actually 2 bigger pieces that are big, long, shorter benches. So today comes to, I need more willow wood. I've got endless supply. Big tree. Anyway, the gift that keeps on giving. So I've lost the footage of the very beginning of this project. A while back, 2, 3, 4 projects ago, I can't even remember which one. I had some extra blue resin and I had poured way too much of it or mixed way too much of it up. So I stuck it in a pan and let it harden in sheets, thinking, I'll figure out a use for this later. And it's been sitting on my shelf for quite a while. And I had this idea, kind of building off of the Crystal Cave vase I did a while back. And I wanted it to look like it had just shattered, that something had just broken, like you broke glass. And so I had been kicking this idea around in my head for a while, and this is what came of it. So I'm actually pretty happy with it. I was going to do this a number of different ways, and this is what came out of it. And it's always a bit of a surprise, the end result, but I like the end feel. It's close to what I was envisioning, at least in spirit. With the release of Sound of Freedom movie that talks about the beginnings of Operation Underground Railroad, when Tim Ballard left the CIA and started thinking he'd help rescue kids from sex trafficking. Anyway, that movie talks about that. We've seen an increase in artists donating stuff to our website, which helps create a small revenue stream for Operation Underground Railroad. Anyway, it's been awesome, and I appreciate everyone who's stepped up to donate and help out. One thing I would love to do is collaborate with more YouTubers. If you're a artist of any kind, doesn't have to be wood turning, and you want to release a video on our channel to help us raise money through viewership and keeping the eternally hungry YouTube algorithm fed, we'd love to work with you. You can find my contact information in the video description below. But also come visit us at Art for O.U.R. and see what you can do to help out. So my thought here was, how am I going to shatter this big sheet of resin I've got and not lose all the pieces? Because I've tried this before with different projects, and this time I thought, okay, let's tape the crap out of it, and that'll hold it together so I can break it, but still maintain the shape. Worked out pretty well. I will say I got a fair amount of enjoyment destroying this thing on the ground. Very therapeutic if you ever get the chance. These carving discs are fantastic. They go on any basic angle grinder. The maker's in the description, but they last for quite a while. I suppose you could sharpen them if you needed to, but they're fairly cheap, last for quite a while, and they're pretty good at removing that medium amount of wood where it's too little for a chainsaw, too much for a Dremel or smaller carving type tool. And then the sanding disc you can get just about anywhere. Not only help to sand, but they can help remove a fair amount of wood and shape it as well. For those medium carving things. carving projects. I think I mentioned in a previous video that we eclipsed the $100,000 mark for art for O.U.R. If you're listening and you've had a hand in that in any way, give yourself a pat on the back. It's absolutely remarkable. Such a fantastic feat. I remember selling my first bowl, made 20 bucks off of it, and I think I paid just as much for shipping. probably lost money. That was a few years ago, I think 3 years ago, just at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So we've come a long ways, and I'm grateful for all the support we've had. Operation Underground Railroad, they go around the world helping fight child sex trafficking, adult trafficking as well. And they've grown up as an organization, and one of the things they've really improved on and do awesome is aftercare, making sure that if somebody's rescued from a trafficking situation, that they have somewhere to go that's long term and not just right back in the hands of the family or friends or whoever else that enslaved them, which is often the case. Yeah, there's cases of kids getting grabbed off the streets and that, but a lot of times it's unfortunately it's friends and family who traffic kids, and it's one of those unforgivable things in my opinion. So just grateful to be able to help fight that and do a little bit on our part. If you'd like to help out, you can do it. There's a list of things you can do on Art for O.U.R. Some of the simplest things is just to do your Amazon shopping using our link. That helps raise a small percentage for our charity. I always donate 100% that we get, of course. Just watching a YouTube channel, subscribing, turning on the notices, all that helps as well. So thank you. Hope you like this project, and it's interesting creating art. Certainly beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So if you're new to the channel, I use this form. It's impossible to find a bowl, vase, Tupperware container to perfectly match the projects I'm doing, because they all take different shapes and sizes. And so I've kind of developed this way of saving resin and creating a perfect form every time. So it's pretty simple. I just glue these sheets of plastic. There's a link to Home Depot where I usually get it in the video description. Cut it, fit it to the thing so that it creates a shield that fits where I want the resin to end. And I put in a couple of plastic bags, usually 3, so it doesn't leak. And then I put that in rice so that it holds the plastic bag against it and holds the whole thing together. So you got a temporary but very custom fit mold for the resin. And then pour resin in the top. I'm learning to put the tenon up so that you don't destroy it and have to chisel it out of the resin later. And then the rest of it's kind of dependent on what you're after. I like to do a lot of clear resin, and so to get truly clear resin is quite a challenge. The best thing I've come up with so far is to put the whole project in resin in a vacuum chamber, and this helps expand bubbles that are deep in there and helps resin seep deep into the wood project, and just to get the air out of the wood and replace it with resin. You'll notice me using a Sawzall without the blade on it here. This was an idea that one of my listeners, subscribers suggested. The idea there is it's such a violent vibration that it helps dislodge air bubbles that may be stuck, especially in this project where there's lots of tiny little ledges under each piece. I've often had little bubbles get stuck just because it can't go anywhere. And this piece turned out pretty much clear. There were some issues with my finishing. It's not perfect, but as far as bubbles, I think it turned out really well. And then the final stage, of course, is to put it into a pressure pot. When you're mixing this much resin, I don't have all day to sit there and mix it so carefully that no bubbles get in it. I got things to do, and so I like to mix it up, get it perfectly mixed, which is a big deal. You don't want to leave unmixed portions. And then the pressure pot takes care of those little bubbles that get suspended in the resin that won't float to the surface, nor will the vacuum chamber get rid of perfectly. So vacuum chamber and the pressure pot do two different things, and I think it's important to do both if you're after clarity in resin, which I often am. And then the nice thing is this plastic and plastic bags turn off quite easily. Super soft stuff, so it comes off easily when I'm turning it. The only thing and I haven't perfected this yet, the way that form sets up, there will be little corners of resin that kind of that form in the crevices of the different folds of the plastic. And so when I'm turning it, sometimes those big chunks come flying off. This piece actually wasn't bad, but I've learned to be very careful when I'm turning it because some big things come flying off of there, and I like to stand to the side for the first few stages so I don't get nailed by it. But I always wear a glove, long sleeve shirt, and of course it's controversial to use gloves with turning, but I think if it's skin tight and basically an extension of your skin, if you're being careful you wouldn't get your own fingers caught anyway, then you're probably fine. Big loose fitting gloves are a bad idea, of course, but so I like to wear gloves, long sleeve shirt, and a full helmet. It's not worth your noggin and your health to take a massive concussion to make a piece of art. So I made the decision to burn the wood. I feel like the wood was too light colored. I wanted a little more interest, and I wanted the blue to be more of to be more eye catching, and the wood to be more forgettable. So that's why I took the blowtorch to it, just to make it some interest. And I also torched the base of the resin on purpose to make it a little black, so it would kind of meld with the wood a little better, and I think that turned out nicely. I lost a lot of that good black color though when I was turning it, and so I tried to retorch it, but then it was covered in clear resin, so there was parts of the blue that I couldn't torch, so it didn't turn out as cool as I wanted, but it was close enough. Hand grenades and kissing, right? Anyway, enjoy the rest of the show here. Appreciate your support. Come back anytime, and love to see how you could help us out over at art.for.our.org, excuse me. And we'll see you on the next project. Have a great day.